it's concerning to me that some of the characteristics that are quote unquote narcissism are really just male, and how God created men with leadership and the need to control things and the need to organize things in a direction to meet and match a target.
Hey everyone, this is Shelby Bowen with Charisma Magazine. I have a very special guest for you today. Her name is Suzette, the marriage warrior, and she has a message for all of the husbands out there, and she is helping to empower you in your leadership role in your marriage. Welcome to Charisma Magazine, Suzette.
Hi, good morning.
So, this is an important topic that we're going over today. There is such an attack on men right now, especially in marriage and their role in marriage. Why has this become such an important thing that you feel like God has put on your heart?
Well, I think you're right. There's an attack. A lot of the YouTube, social media, life is really attacking men, using a lot of harsh words like narcissism and, like you and I talked about, gaslighting and all that kind of stuff. And what I got passionate about is, although I work with marriages and majorly crisis marriages, when they're in the divorce or about to get separated or there's adultery or addiction, what I do is empower the men as leaders, get their life of integrity back on track, and their spiritual alignment with their God and their wives and their family back on track. And then we find a lot of success in bringing a couple that's in a high crisis situation back into a thriving situation, even to find a sweet spot in their marriage. But it's taken me to bring the men into a leadership role. And what's been concerning to me is a lot of the coaches on YouTube are talking about narcissism. And, there's a divide occurring as a result of it. The women are starting to see, oh my gosh, these are the characteristics that my husband's been living in. And yes, on a continuum scale, narcissism is a problem. I mean, the more characteristics that you're operating in, the deeper the pain is for the partner, and the more toxicity occurs in the coupleship. So there is a concern to be had with this new content being drawn out for people to become more aware of the characteristics of narcissism. However, narcissism is a highly dysfunctional, dysregulated disorder. And it's concerning to me that some of the characteristics that are quote unquote narcissism are really just male, and how God created men with leadership and the need to control things and the need to organize things in a direction to meet and match a target. So I don't want a lot of the negativity that's occurring that's going to create a divide if we're not careful to occur. And so, what I've been trying to do is just do what I do in my business. I empower husbands first, and I take this, control or this type of avoidance that they do that's very toxic in a marriage. And I don't want to downplay that in a relationship when men are operating in avoidance and gaslighting and control and all of that, that's not harmful. So it is harmful and it's not good for a marriage, but how do we maneuver that into leadership that's effective and impactful inside of the marriage, and bring the male to an empowered place that God created him to be, utilizing some of the same tactics? A man is going to shut down a conversation if it's going in the wrong direction. He doesn't want to argue with his wife. And the way he does that, if he's very immature emotionally, is going to be through very negative things like gaslighting and blame shifting and all these narcissistic realities. But we want to be able to see if we can get the guy to move in a direction to not shut down the conversation, but learn how to lead it properly. And when he can lead it properly, to get out of the argument instead of the dysfunctional, gaslighting, toxic type of things, then he can lead his wife and his marriage into a direction that's very positive. utilizing what God already gave him inside as a man. And so I don't want the men to be destroyed by this. We need the men. We need them to be empowered. We need them at the front lines. And that's how they're created to be anyway. So when we're trying to tear them down, it's concerning to me. As an independent woman, I know I'm a weaker vessel. We need men. God created that alignment that we feel the most secure when that male is leading. But the way in which they lead is very it needs education, it needs training. And I get a lot of the males that I work with, they say, "Oh, Suzette, I'm so glad I'm not flying blind anymore," which means that's how they were feeling. They were feeling lost in their role as a leader. And now they're learning tools and learning how to communicate properly and when and how to shut down a conversation that's in an appropriate way, that's respectful to his wife that he loves, instead of just sweeping it under the rug. They just don't have the tools, and I'm concerned about, just because they don't have the tools, that our society is going to continue to diminish the male role.
Now, you have a saying that you talk about in your counseling, and it's me before we. So, really pouring into making sure you're a healthy person, you are whole, and then you lead from that place into your marriage. What would you say the role of mental health plays in men in their marriage? I mean, obviously it does for both sides, but since we're talking about the men today, why is it important that men have a healthy, emotional, spiritual health for their relationship?
Well, anytime that you're leading others, that needs to be your priority, is self health. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times men think that their only role in their marriage is to provide financially. Okay. But the facts are they have to provide all kinds of things: emotion, presence, ability to guide and to motivate. And if they are not mentally at that place with self, and all they're doing is working and then coming home and finding the remote and having a beer or whatever they're doing, they're not mentally healthy, they're not fully aligned. And so mental health is basically just about personal alignment. That's all it is. And when you're in a mental health dysfunction or a disorder is creeping in, it's because the alignment is off. And so the alignment is mental, emotional, spiritual. Okay. And then behavioral is the action from that alignment. And so if you're, say, in an addiction, if you're pornography, if you're struggling with pornography, if you're in an addiction or an affair or something like that, all that is a symptom that there's not proper mental health alignment. So the psychology of mental health is basically the mind being sound, and we cannot seem to get the mind sound by ourselves. We have to lean on the Lord to get the mind stable, because the scripture says a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. So if you are switching on who you're following, then you're not going to have mental stability. And I always tell the guys, listen, your wives will follow you anywhere that you're following Christ. But she's not going to trust you if you're not following Christ. So if she doesn't see a spiritual life in him, and the spiritual life is not just about a devotional life, your devotional life is that you're just setting time aside because you're trying to center self with God as a higher being power that you're submitting yourself to. So it quiets your spirit down. It opens you up to hear what the spirit might be saying to your spirit. Okay, God's higher spirit, the most high, is the most high. I always tell people, listen, don't be talking about higher powers. If you're talking about praying to a higher power, there's lots of higher powers out there. You need to pray to the most high power. That's the power we're reaching, because he is over all. So when the men understand that, they're not as confused, because men are powerful. They want to be powerful. So it's easy to get them to go to God. And the only way we go through God is through the blood of Christ. That's why God gave us Jesus, is because we had to go through that little canal that his blood created to get to the Most High. Okay, there's no way to get to the Most High without Jesus. And so when they understand the simplicity of that, then their prayer life increases just by them understanding the need for centeredness. So then when you get centeredness going on in your life, you're going to get mental direction first. Okay, you're going to know how to change the racing thoughts, which is part of mental health, is to stop the racing thoughts. Directional instead of confusion of what you're going to even do to your day, with your day, your groundhog day going over and over and over. So you get your mental stability right first, then you get your emotional stability corrected. And the emotion is connected to the mind. You see, what we think on, what does the scripture say? A man will become. He is what he thinks on. So when we think in a clarity, then our emotions will get stable. And so also the thing about mental health is they have to understand themselves as their triggers. Your triggers from your history, your family of origin history, your way you development is just habits formed over and over and over. And when a child is small, we all are bidding for one thing, and that is our parents' attention. And even sibling order will impact how the parent gives you attention. So if you have a older child, the firstborn is usually the perfect child, because think about it logically. When you have only one child, you're a parent, you have only one child. Your attention as parents is going to that child, and if you're an attentive parent, you're going to be, oh, that's so good, Johnny, that's so great, all the time. So that child learns attention through being good, being perfect, right? So then the second child comes in, which is usually the radical crazy one, and that's usually the addict, is the second child, because that child sees that position is taken. I can't be perfect as Johnny, right? Because Johnny's now had 2 or 3 years on, little Jimmy. So he can't beat Johnny. So he can't beat him. So he's got to go against it to get that attention. So what does he do? He starts, banging on the table. Jimmy, stop! Jimmy, stop! Jimmy, stop! Then Johnny runs, oh, Johnny, that's so good. It's all about attention. So the habits that we form just develop into adulthood. And so that doesn't stop. The rebel doesn't stop. The perfectionist doesn't stop. And then you wind up imploding in your emotional stability over 30 years or 40 years of doing that. And then you have to escape that. And then you wind up in an addictive lifestyle to escape it. Wow. So it's not complicated. It's very logical. But until we become aware of what is occurring, so that then we, as the greatness of the image of God and the likeness of God, we are, then with Jesus alongside of us, this is a winning thing we can actually accomplish and get over and overcome. But we have to understand alignment. So you see how I just composed all of the emotional, family of origin, mental, and the God as the higher power to center it all. Does that make sense? That's how it does to be done.